All right, so let's dive right into something I know a lot of you are interested in, the dynamics of power, especially in relationships.
Yeah, it's a fascinating topic for sure.
It is, and it's one that Conrad Riker tackles head on in his book, Female Power Play, How Men Can Stay Ahead.
That's right. It's a book that's been generating a lot of buzz, and I think it's because it really gets into some uncomfortable truths about the ways power can play out in relationships.
It definitely does. And what I found really interesting about Riker's approach is that he doesn't shy away from challenging some of the conventional wisdom about relationships. He argues that there's this often unspoken power play happening with women employing strategies, sometimes unconsciously, to gain and maintain control.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that makes the book so compelling. It's not about blaming women or portraying them as manipulative. It's about understanding the dynamics at play and empowering men with the knowledge they need to navigate those dynamics effectively. And one of the key points Riker makes is that these power dynamics are often rooted in a combination of societal expectations, historical shifts, and even biology.
Okay, so it's not just about individual women being manipulative, but a system at play.
Exactly. Riker argues that societal norms, combined with deeply ingrained biological drives, create a landscape where women are almost naturally inclined towards certain behaviors in relationships. And he suggests men often find themselves on the back foot trying to decode this complex game without even realizing it's being played.
That's fascinating. So what are some specific examples that Riker gives of this power play in action?
Well, he delves into things like emotional blackmail.
Those guilt trips we've all probably experienced at some point.
Exactly. And how women can leverage societal expectations to their advantage. You know, those unwritten rules about how men are supposed to behave.
Mm.
He argues that these tactics, while often subtle, can have a significant impact on the balance of power in a relationship.
And what about this idea of historical shifts? I mean, things have changed so much in terms of gender roles and expectations. How does Riker tie that into the power dynamics of relationships?
That's a crucial part of his argument. He spends a good portion of the book exploring how societal shifts, especially those influenced by feminism, have impacted traditional male roles. Think about it. Men are expected to be both providers and emotionally available,
Right.
but then they often face criticism for the very traits that were once valued, like strength and assertiveness.
Right, it's like this double bind.
It is. You're supposed to be the strong, silent type, but also sensitive and in touch with your emotions. It can feel impossible to get it right.
And Riker's point is that this conflicting set of expectations leaves men vulnerable, particularly when it comes to issues like financial exploitation.
Exactly. He doesn't shy away from the uncomfortable realities of divorce settlements and how they can financially cripple men. He brings up the importance of prenuptial agreements and protecting assets.
Which are often viewed as taboo subjects, especially by women.
Right. Riker suggests that's because those conversations can disrupt the power dynamic that some women have come to rely on.
I can see how that would make some people uncomfortable, for sure. But it's important to remember that he's not saying all women are intentionally malicious.
No, no, not at all. He's saying these behaviors are often ingrained and even unconscious. He's not trying to vilify women, but to empower men with knowledge so they can build healthier relationships. He even uses real-life examples of men who faced financial hardship due to divorce settlements and alimony
It
payments.
sounds like some of these examples are pretty intense. Does he also talk about the emotional side of things, beyond the financial aspect?
Oh, absolutely. He delves into the idea of emotional manipulation, outlining tactics like gaslighting.
Where someone tries to make you doubt your own sanity,
Exactly, and withholding affection.
which can be so damaging.
Right. Behaviors that can be incredibly damaging to a man's mental health.
So it seems like Riker's really advocating for men to become more self-aware and set clear boundaries in their relationship.
Absolutely. That's a major theme throughout the book. He stresses that recognizing these patterns and setting boundaries is crucial to protect oneself from both emotional and financial harm.
But how do you even start to recognize these patterns, especially if they're often unconscious? What kind of advice does Riker offer?
Well, one of the most fascinating parts of the book is his exploration of hypergamy. Have you heard of that term before?
I have, but to be honest, I'm not sure I fully grasp it.
It's basically the idea that women are biologically driven to seek partners of higher status,
Okay.
those who can offer greater resources and security. Riker argues this drive, while often subconscious, has been amplified by things like social media, where comparisons are constant and expectations are inflated.
That makes a lot of sense. Everyone's curating this perfect image online, and it can definitely warp your perception of what's normal or achievable.
Exactly. And Riker connects this back to his argument about power dynamics, suggesting that this hypergamous drive can lead women to utilize certain strategies, even subconsciously, to secure a partner who meets those deeply ingrained criteria. It's fascinating stuff, really. And Riker, he doesn't just leave you hanging with these broad concepts. He actually gets into some very specific strategies men can use to kind of navigate these complexities.
Okay, now we're talking. Give us the goods, the juicy details. What kind of strategies are we talking about here?
Well, one of the most interesting things he talks about is understanding female communication patterns, and he argues that women often communicate indirectly,
Okay.
relying more on subtle cues and hints rather than direct statements.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed that in my own relationship. Sometimes it feels like I'm trying to decipher a secret code.
Right. And Riker suggests that men who are more direct in their communication style might miss those signals altogether. Uh-huh.
So he encourages men to pay attention to not just the words being said, but also the tone of voice, the body language, the overall context of the conversation.
So it's about reading between the lines, picking up on those unspoken messages.
Exactly. And this ties into his point about maintaining autonomy in relationships.
Right.
He argues that women, often unconsciously, leverage societal norms and expectations to influence men's behavior.
Can you give us an example of what that might look like?
Well, he talked about how women might subtly discourage men from spending time with their friends,
Okay.
or how they might steer men towards certain career choices that align with their own needs and desires. He encourages men to be aware of these attempts to control or manipulate and to assert their own independence.
It's about recognizing those patterns and standing your ground.
Precisely. It's about making your own choices and not letting societal pressures or subtle manipulation dictate your actions. And this leads to another key piece of advice he offers: understanding how women use emotional leverage, often subconsciously, to get what they want. I'm sure we've all experienced that at some point. Can you elaborate on what Riker means by emotional leverage?
Sure. He talks about things like guilt trips, playing the victim,
Yeah.
and even withholding affection as ways to exert control or influence a man's decisions. He offers real-life examples from his practice as a therapist, showing how these tactics can play out in everyday interactions.
So it's about recognizing those manipulations and not falling into the trap of feeling guilty or obligated to give in.
Exactly. He emphasizes the importance of staying grounded, remembering your own needs and priorities, and not letting emotions cloud your judgment.
This is all making me think about the financial aspect of relationships, which we touched on earlier. Riker mentioned prenuptial agreements. What else does he say about protecting yourself financially?
He stresses the importance of maintaining a degree of financial independence, even within a committed relationship.
Okay.
He gives specific examples of how not having clear financial boundaries can lead to exploitation, especially in cases of divorce.
So things like keeping separate bank accounts, being clear about who pays for what.
Exactly. He even suggests considering prenuptial agreements,
Right.
not as a sign of distrust, but as a way to protect yourself and ensure a fair outcome should the relationship end.
I can see how that would be a tough conversation to have, especially if your partner sees it as a lack of trust. What does Riker say about navigating that potential conflict?
He encourages men to be assertive, to clearly communicate their needs and intentions, and to stand firm in their decisions, even if it leads to pushback.
This is about having those difficult conversations and not shying away from potential conflict.
Exactly. He argues that avoiding those conversations out of fear of upsetting your partner can ultimately lead to resentment and a power imbalance down the line.
This is all very eye-opening. I'm starting to see how these seemingly small things, like communication patterns and financial boundaries, can actually have a huge impact on the dynamics of a relationship.
That's exactly what Riker wants readers to understand. It's about recognizing those subtle power plays and taking steps to create a more balanced and equitable partnership.
So we've talked about communication, finances, and emotional manipulation. What other areas does Riker delve into?
Well, he also spends a good amount of time discussing the role of biology in shaping female behavior. This is where things get really interesting.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell us more about this biological angle.
So he talks about how hormones like estrogen and progesterone can influence women's moods, their energy levels, and even decision-making processes.
So it's not just about social conditioning, but also biological factors that are at play.
Exactly. Riker explains that understanding these biological influences can be helpful for men, allowing them to anticipate certain behaviors and respond in a more understanding and supportive way.
But he's not saying it's an excuse for bad behavior, is he?
No, not at all. It's about having a more nuanced understanding of the factors that can influence a woman's actions and reactions. It's about empathy, not justification.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like you can't hold someone accountable for things they can't control, but you can still set boundaries and protect yourself from being treated poorly.
Exactly. And this ties into another interesting point Riker makes about the evolutionary roots of female behavior. He explains how women have historically been driven to seek out partners who can provide security and resources,
Yeah.
a drive that's still present today, even in modern societies.
So even though women are more financially independent now, those primal instincts are still influencing their choices in partners.
That's Riker's argument, and he believes that understanding this evolutionary perspective can help men better understand the motivations behind certain female behaviors.
Wow, this is all so fascinating. I feel like we're getting a real crash course in female psychology here.
That's a great way to put it. Riker's book is all about empowering men with knowledge
Right.
so they can make informed choices and navigate the complexities of relationships with greater understanding.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about the power play, societal shifts, communication patterns, finances, emotional manipulation, and even the biological and evolutionary roots of female behavior.
Yeah, phew. It's a lot to take in.
It is. And I think it's important to emphasize that Riker isn't suggesting that men become cynical about relationships or that they view women as adversaries.
Right. It's not about becoming some kind of relationship cynic.
Exactly.
His goal is to empower men with knowledge and understanding so they can build healthier, more fulfilling partnerships. And a big part of that, as we've discussed, is self-awareness.
Okay, so let's circle back to self-awareness. We've touched on it a few times already, but I think it's worth digging a little deeper. What exactly does Riker mean by self-awareness, and how does it play out in the context of relationships?
So he's talking about understanding your own needs, desires, and vulnerabilities.
Okay.
It's about recognizing those patterns we've discussed, understanding what you bring to the table in a relationship, and being clear about what you're looking for in a partner.
So it's not just about understanding women, but about understanding yourself first.
Exactly. Riker argues that men who lack self-awareness often fall into predictable traps,
Okay.
making the same mistakes over and over again.
Right.
They might choose partners who are wrong for them, ignore red flags, or fail to set boundaries, leading to unhappiness and resentment.
So self-awareness is about taking stock of your own life and your own patterns.
Precisely. It's about being honest with yourself about what you want and what you need in a relationship, and then making choices that align with those needs.
So how do you actually develop this self-awareness? Does Riker offer any practical advice?
He does. He suggests things like journaling, taking time for introspection, and even seeking feedback from trusted friends or therapists.
So it's about being willing to look inward and really examine yourself.
Exactly. And he argues that this process of self-discovery can be challenging, but it's ultimately incredibly rewarding. It allows you to become more confident, assertive, and capable of building healthy, fulfilling relationships.
I can see how that would be true. When you know yourself better, you're better equipped to make good choices in all areas of life, including relationships.
Right, and he also emphasizes that this self-awareness can actually enhance your masculinity, not diminish it.
How's that?
Well, he argues that true strength comes from understanding and managing your emotions, not from suppressing them. A self-aware man is more in control of himself, not letting his emotions dictate his actions or cloud his judgment.
That's a powerful message. It's about being both strong and emotionally intelligent.
Exactly. It's about being a whole, complete man who is comfortable in his own skin and capable of navigating the complexities of life,
Right.
including relationships with confidence and integrity.
Okay, so we've talked about self-awareness. What other key pieces of advice does Riker offer for men who want to build healthier, more balanced relationships?
One of the most important pieces of advice he gives is to set and enforce clear boundaries.
We've talked about boundaries a bit already, but I think it's worth revisiting. What are some specific examples of boundaries that men should consider setting in their relationships?
So he talks about a wide range of boundaries, from financial boundaries, like maintaining separate bank accounts or being clear about who pays for what,
Right.
to emotional boundaries, like recognizing when you're being manipulated
Mm-hmm.
or guilt-tripped, and setting limits on what you're willing to tolerate.
So it's about being clear about your needs and limits And communicating those to your partner.
Exactly. And it's not just about communicating them, but about being willing to enforce them.
Okay.
That means saying no when someone tries to cross a line and being prepared to walk away from situations that are not healthy for you.
I can see how that could be challenging, especially if you're used to putting your partner's needs before your own.
It can be. But Riker emphasizes that enforcing your boundaries is a sign of strength and self-respect, not weakness. It's about taking control of your life and not letting others dictate your choices.
And he also talks about setting boundaries in other areas of life, not just in relationships, right?
Absolutely. He discusses the importance of setting boundaries with friends, family, even at work.
Uh-huh.
He argues that setting boundaries is essential for protecting your time, your energy, and your emotional well-being.
This is all really helpful advice. It seems like setting boundaries is a crucial step in reclaiming your power and creating a more balanced and fulfilling life.
Exactly. It's about taking ownership of your life and your choices, and not letting others dictate how you spend your time, your energy, or your emotions.
Okay, so we've talked about self-awareness and boundaries.
Yeah.
What other key pieces of advice does Riker offer for men who want to build healthier, more balanced relationships?
Well, he also stresses the importance of self-care. He argues that men often neglect self-care because they've been taught to see it as selfish or weak.
I can definitely relate to that. It's like we're supposed to be the strong, stoic ones who take care of everyone else.
Exactly. But Riker emphasizes that self-care is not about indulgence. It's about taking care of your physical, emotional, and mental well-being. So you can show up as your best self in all areas of your life.
So what are some practical self-care strategies that Riker suggests for men?
He provides a range of strategies, including things like exercise, healthy eating, getting enough sleep, spending time in nature, engaging in hobbies, connecting with loved ones.
Okay.
He also emphasizes the importance of managing stress effectively, suggesting techniques like meditation, mindfulness, and deep breathing exercises.
Those all sound like great ideas, but they can be tough to implement, especially when you're feeling overwhelmed or stressed.
He acknowledges that, and he even encourages men to seek professional help when needed,
Okay.
emphasizing that therapy is not a sign of weakness, but a sign of strength and self-awareness.
It seems like there's a recurring theme here. Taking care of yourself is not selfish, it's essential.
Exactly. Riker argues that when you take care of yourself, you're better equipped to handle stress, make sound decisions, and build healthy relationships. You're also more likely to feel confident, resilient, and fulfilled.
So breaking down large goals into smaller steps makes the process less daunting. And you can celebrate the small wins along the way.
Absolutely. It's like those video games where you complete a series of quests to reach the final goal.
Right.
Each quest you complete brings you closer to your ultimate objective.
Exactly. It's a great analogy.
Mhm.
And it highlights the importance of celebrating your successes along the way. Each small step you take is a victory. And it's important to acknowledge and celebrate those victories.
That's so true. It's easy to get caught up in the big picture.
Right, and forget to appreciate those smaller wins.
Yes, and those small wins can add up to big results over time.
Okay, so we've talked about setting goals and breaking them down into manageable steps. What other advice does Riker offer when it comes to taking control of your life?
One of the most important things to remember when setting goals is to make sure they're aligned with your values.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
It's like if you're working towards something that doesn't really matter to you, it's going to be hard to stay motivated.
exactly. He explains that when your goals are aligned with your values, you're more likely to feel fulfilled and satisfied, even if the journey is challenging. He encourages men to take some time to identify their core values, the principles that guide their decisions and actions.
So things like honesty, integrity, kindness, compassion, hard work, creativity.
Exactly. Those are all great examples. Once you've identified your values, you can start to set goals that are in line with those values.
Can you give us an example of how that might work?
Sure. For example, if you value family, you might set a goal to spend more quality time with your loved ones. Or if you value creativity, you might set a goal to pursue a creative hobby or start a side business.
That's a great way to think about it. It's
Yeah.
about aligning your actions with your values so
Mhm.
that you're living a life that feels authentic and meaningful.
Exactly. He believes that when you live in alignment with your values, you're more likely to feel happy, fulfilled, and successful. It's about creating a life that reflects who you are at your core.
Okay, so aligning your goals with your values is key. What other practical advice does Riker offer for taking control of your life?
Another important aspect is learning to manage your time effectively.
Time management is something I think a lot of people struggle with. It always feels like there's not enough time in the day to get everything done.
He explains that time is your most valuable resource
Right.
and that it's important to use it wisely. He suggests that men track their time for a week to see where they're spending it and to identify areas where they can be more efficient.
So it's about being mindful of how you're spending your time and making sure you're not wasting it on things that aren't important.
Exactly. He also recommends using time management techniques, like prioritizing tasks, setting deadlines, and breaking down large projects into smaller chunks. He encourages men to schedule time for the things that are important to them, like spending time with loved ones, pursuing hobbies, or working on personal
So
goals.
it's not just about working harder, but about working smarter.
Exactly. It's about being strategic with your time and making sure you're focusing on the things that matter most.
Okay, so time management is key. What else does Riker discuss when it comes to taking control of your life?
One of the biggest challenges he addresses is overcoming fear and self-doubt.
I think that's something that holds a lot of people back from achieving their full potential. It's easy to get caught up in negative thoughts and let fear paralyze you.
He explains that fear is a natural human emotion, but it can hold you back from achieving your full potential. He encourages men to identify their fears and to challenge the negative thoughts that fuel those fears.
So it's about facing your fears head on and not letting them control you.
Exactly. He suggests that men ask themselves questions like, what's the worst that could happen? And what evidence do I have to support this fear? He also encourages men to focus on their past successes and to remind themselves that they've overcome challenges before.
It's like that saying, feel the fear and do it anyway.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that fear is often irrational and that it doesn't have to control your life.
So facing your fears is important.
Right.
What else does Riker suggest for taking control of your life?
He also emphasizes the importance of building a strong support system.
I can see how that will be helpful. Having people in your corner who believe in you and support you can make a big difference.
He explains that having people in your life who believe in you, who support you, and who challenge you to be your best is essential for success.
Right.
He encourages men to cultivate relationships with positive, supportive people who share their values and goals.
Okay.
He also suggests that men join groups or communities where they can connect with others who are on a similar path.
So it's about surrounding yourself with people who lift you up and who inspire you to be your best.
Exactly. He explains that having a strong support system can provide you with encouragement, accountability, and a sense of belonging. It can also help you stay motivated, overcome challenges, and celebrate your successes.
It's like having a team of cheerleaders who are always there to root you on.
Exactly. He believes that when you have a strong support system, you're more likely to achieve your goals and live a fulfilling life.
So building a strong support system is key. What other advice does Riker offer?
He also encourages men to be proactive in seeking out mentors and role models.
That's a great idea. Having someone who's been there and done that to offer guidance and support can be invaluable.
He explains that mentors can provide valuable guidance, support, and advice. He suggests that men identify people they admire and respect and reach out to them to ask for advice or mentorship.
So it's about finding people who you look up to and who can offer you wisdom and guidance based on their own experiences.
Exactly. He also encourages men to be open to learning from others, even those who are younger or less experienced than them.
That's a good point. You can learn something from everyone.
He agrees. He believes that there's always something to learn from others. Don't be afraid to ask for help, seek out guidance, and let others inspire you to be your best.
It seems like Riker's book is packed with practical strategies for men to take control of their lives and create a future they're excited about. He encourages men to be proactive, set clear goals, manage their time effectively, overcome fear and self-doubt, build a strong support system, and find mentors who can guide them along the way.
His message is that you have the power to shape your own destiny.
That's right.
Don't let societal expectations, the demands of work, or the complexities of relationships dictate your life. Step up, take control, and create the life you want.
That's a powerful message. It's about taking ownership of your life and creating a future that's aligned with your values and your goals.
And it's about recognizing that you have the strength, the intelligence, and the resilience to make it happen.
Well, there you have it, a deep dive into Conrad Riker's Female Power Play. It's a book that challenges conventional thinking about relationships and offers a roadmap for men who want to take control of their lives and create more fulfilling partnerships.
It's packed with insights into female behavior, the dynamics of power, and practical strategies for navigating the complexities of modern relationships.
If you're looking to understand these dynamics better and empower yourself in your relationships, I highly recommend checking out Female Power Play.
Absolutely.
You can find it on Amazon Kindle and Google Play Books.